Hi guys, welcome back. Today I am here with my April wrap-up. As has been usual for me this year, I read a lot of books this month. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my reading stats for the month, and then if you haven't watched my wrap-ups before, I do start at my lowest rated books and then move up towards my highest rated books. So let's get right into this. In the month of April, I read 24 books. Of those books, 7 of them were ARCs. 7 of them were library books, so I definitely made use of my library this month. I only read 1 graphic novel this month, and I feel like I had a pretty decent spread in terms of ratings. I had a couple of pretty low-rated books this month, and then I had some really amazing books and some stuff that fell in the middle. So that said, let's get into what I read. I did have a 1-star read this month, and it was an ARC from NetGalley, which is funny. Yeah, this was not what it claimed to be. I am not going to have time with all of these books to go into great detail, so if you guys do want to hear more of my thoughts about everything than what I give here, my Goodreads account is always linked in the video description down below, and I do write in-depth reviews for everything I read. They're usually less in-depth for graphic novels, but for everything I do write reviews, so that is always linked below. The first thing that I read this month was Blue as Red by G. Strangeway, and this goes on sale in May. This was an ARC from NetGalley that I received in exchange for an honest review. I ended up giving this 1 star. It was not for me. There are a lot of trigger warnings for it. Red as Blue is billed as a beautiful coming-of-age story with queer teenagers. It does have some queer teenagers. Nothing about this was beautiful, at least in my opinion. It was brutal, it was problematic, it had some awful content. I don't really want to talk about it on here. I gave it 1 star. If you want to know more about it, check out my Goodreads review. I go into a little bit more of a rant on there. One other thing I did forget to mention, so I thought I would just throw this in here. I also had a DNF this month. And I don't always talk about my DNFs, but in this case I'm going to because it was actually on my TBR. And I DNF'd it and gave it away. And it's a popular book, which is fine. If you love this, cool. But I ended up DNFing The Wicked Deep by Shea Earnshaw. I don't think it's probably a bad book, I just think it's not for me. I read the first several chapters and I just didn't really care that much about what was happening. I know there's a lot of people who really love this book, and I do think it's beautiful. I just was really not interested. So I DNF'd that one. So sorry if you loved it. There are a lot of people who are loving it and reviewing it. I don't know, it just didn't interest me. I was kind of bored, and it seemed like, I was like, okay, I kind of see where this is going. I don't really care. I'm gonna read other things, so yeah, just slip that in here, and then I don't know where I'm gonna put this in the video, but back to whatever I was saying earlier. Next, I had a 2.5 star read, and that was The Falconer by Elizabeth May. I talk about this in a reading update video earlier in the month, and so I will leave a link to that up above. In that video, I talk about The Falconer, I talk about Ship It, which I'm going to talk about later, and I think one other book. So if you want to hear more of my thoughts on that, that was a disappointing one. I hoped to love it. It was not what I expected, and there were things I really didn't like about it, so I gave it 2.5 stars. Again, if you want to check out my thoughts, go and watch that video. I do talk about it in more detail. And that was a library book, so I'll put pictures here of the library books that I don't have with me, because a lot of these I don't have with me at the moment. I had 4 books that I rated 3 stars this month. The first one was another ARC from NetGalley, and this was How I Resist, edited by Maureen Johnson. How I Resist is a YA collection of essays from different people, authors, celebrities, activists, about resistance, political resistance, and politics, and how to resist as a teenager. This I gave 3 stars. Individually, there were some really fantastic essays in it. I think the thing that bothered me about this, though, and this is more of an editorial issue, is that I felt that it was not representative. It very heavily pulled from contributors who were from the East Coast, which is a very particular brand of liberalism and political resistance, and I felt like there was not enough representation of Middle America. There was some from the West Coast but not a lot. It was very heavily East Coast, and I didn't love that. I felt like it could have been edited better, and yeah, so individually there are some really great essays in there, and I think some great things. Unfortunately, I thought it could have done a better job of being more representative and appealing to a broader base of young adults who want to be involved in political resistance. Instead, it felt not that, and that I thought was unfortunate. This month, I decided to read some of the Shopaholic books with my friend Katrina from the fabulous Book Fiend. I ended up reading 2 of them. 3 of them were on my TBR. I did not read book 3. I read Confessions of a Shopaholic and Shopaholic Takes Manhattan. I gave both of these 3 stars. For the first book, that might have been generous. I maybe should give it 2.5. I had very mixed feelings about these books. They weren't really what I expected, and I'm not sure. I have book 3. I'm not sure I'm going to continue on with the series. I think I liked the movie, which is why I wanted to originally pick these up. I think they don't age well. Unfortunately. They're like, when were they published? Yeah. So like book 1 was published in 2000, 2001. Today, I don't think these would get published without some major edits. And it may be that later on in the series, because it happens later in time, that changes, but I don't know. So I have thoughts on this. Tell me if you would be interested in seeing me make a video about my thoughts on this, because I may do that. It was interesting because I can see how 15 years ago this would have maybe worked better, and things in this would have worked better, and maybe revisiting it if you had read them back then would be kind of fun and nostalgic. As it is, this is my first time reading them, and while there were things I ended up liking about them, there were also a lot of things that really bothered me that I think are a timing issue. Like, yeah, so there's stuff in this that really doesn't age very well. Tell me if you'd be interested in seeing me make a video about those. I may do it. Then the last book that I rated 3 stars was Dumplin' by Julie Murphy. This I got out from my library as well. Book 2 is coming out really soon. A lot of people have been talking about it. If you're not familiar with it, it is a young adult book about a plus-size teen girl who decides to enter a beauty pageant and is dealing with a lot of body anxiety and insecurity and things happening in high school. There was a lot that I liked about it and thought was good. I think I'm not the right audience for this anymore. It felt very young adult in a way that not all books do, and I also didn't necessarily connect that much with some of the particular ways that her body anxiety exhibits itself, and I didn't really like her that much as a main character. She's kind of a brat, and you know, which is fine. Like, she learns and grows a bit through the book, but she's kind of a brat, and I am so far past that age of my life that I think it just wasn't for me. So I liked elements of it. I liked some of the side characters a lot. I liked what it was trying to do, so I gave it 3 stars, but I had mixed feelings about it. Then I had 2 books that I rated 3.5 stars. The first one was another library book, Jane Unlimited by Kristen Kishore. This one I liked, and I thought it was very creative. It was fun. I'm glad I got it from the library. It was something that I'd heard people talk about and I had been curious to pick up, and I'm glad I picked it up. It was a fun book. It was interesting. It was really creative. If you're not familiar with it, it's sort of like it's similar to Choose Your Own Adventure, except it's meant to be read sequentially. So you have this like 80-page prologue that sets it up. I feel like I talked about this. Did I talk about that? I did. I talked about this in my Get Ready With Me video, so if you want to hear more about it, you can watch that. But it's got like this 80-page prologue that sets it up, and then it's got these sections based on her making different decisions, and each section is a different genre, which I thought was pretty cool. So there's like a sci-fi genre, there's a mystery, traditional mystery genre, there's a spy thriller, there's a fantasy, there's this kind of horror one, and that I thought was cool. I thought they were done pretty well. It was fun. So I'm glad I read it. I enjoyed it. I liked the story. I liked the creativity of the way that she did the different genres and then tied it all together. I thought that was pretty cool. I did give it 3.5 stars because, you know, because of that, it definitely suffered from not having enough story development or character development for each of the individual things. This wasn't like amazing, but I thought it was creative and it was fun and it was a pretty quick read, so I enjoyed that. And the other book that I ended up rating 3.5 stars was Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. This is the first book in the series, and I buddy read this with Leanna from Leanna's Library. It's like, okay, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think I was hoping for more out of it than I got. This is very much like Game of Thrones light plus Gossip Girl. It's like, yeah, that's kind of what this is. It's like light Game of Thrones for a young adult audience plus like a Gossip Girl-y thing. I don't know. It's okay. It's fun. It's not the most amazingly written thing. I'm hoping that the books in the series will get better. I'm interested enough to continue on. There's like a weird, almost incesty thing that happens in here that I didn't love, which also makes me feel like, oh yeah, this is totally Game of Thrones light. So I don't know, we'll see. I'd probably continue on with the series. I do have book 2. It was okay. It was fun. Not amazing, but it was alright. Then I had a whole bunch of 4-star books, and 4-star books for me are books that I really liked. I thought they were really good, but they didn't wow me, or I didn't love them enough to want to give them 5 stars, but they're all really good books. The first one was one I got out from the library because I did get approved for an arc of book 2, so I will be reading that in the next couple of months. Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. This is really good. I very much enjoyed it. So Labyrinth Lost is this sort of witchy portal fantasy set partly in Brooklyn, partly in this other world, and it features a main character who is Latina, and it pulls from this tradition of brujas, these Latin American witches, and it's really cool. It's really diverse. It's a cool take on it. It's, you know, like, a lot of the story is relatively predictable, but it's fun and it's creative, and if you like portal fantasies, you'll probably enjoy it. It's really good. I enjoyed it. I look forward to reading book 2. It's also kind of interesting. There's sort of a love triangle, but because our main character is bisexual, it's like an unexpected sort of love triangle, so that's interesting. Yeah, it was fun. It was an enjoyable read. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't like amazing, but it was really good. Very solid book, and I'm looking forward to continuing with the series. Next 4-star read I had was Giant Days Volume 4? Was it Volume 3? Volume 3. Giant Days Volume 3. I'm continuing on with the series. This one I really liked. If you remember, Volume 1 I really liked. I think I gave it 4 stars. Volume 2 was a 3-star. It wasn't as coherent. Volume 4, again, really good. A story that kind of fit together. I'm liking the series. The next 4-star read was another one that, guys, this is so good and actually way better than I was expecting, but Nyxia by Scott Rankin. This is a YA sci-fi book, and I think if you like Red Rising, or if you're looking for something that has Red Rising vibes but is more YA, Nyxia is a good one. It's also super diverse. Our main character is an African American, and it's written really well. I thought it was interesting because, like, the author is white, so I was like, okay, really though? But he, I think, does a really good job, and it's sort of cool if you read a little bit of his story. The author is actually a teacher. I think he teaches like middle school or high school or something, and he wanted to write something where his students felt like they could see themselves in this like sci-fi adventure, which I think is amazing, and it's really cool. It's really well written. If you're wondering, Nyxia is this kind of mysterious substance that is really expensive and is from an alien planet and can be used for all these different things. And so there's this corporation that is trying to mine Nyxia, but they need teenagers to do it for them for reasons that I won't go into right now. And so they select a group of teenagers to go on this space voyage and compete for the ability to be on this team mining Nyxia, which means they will get paid a lot and their families will be taken care of. Anyway, it's got really interesting characters. I really very much enjoyed it. I thought it's very well written, great world. I am looking forward to reading book 2. This is one that surprised me. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't expect it to be amazing, but it's very good. Okay, the next book I ended up giving 4 stars to, and honestly through most of this book I thought it was going to be a 5-star read, and then the ending pushed it down to 4 stars for me. It's still a really good book and very much worth reading. It's Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I maybe should bump this up to 4.5 stars because it has really stuck with me and I've continued to talk and think about this book a lot. I just didn't like the direction the ending took. Americanah is, oh gosh, it's so good, and I keep like referencing it in conversations because it's just so thought-provoking and so well written. It is mostly about this woman who is born in Nigeria and immigrates to America like in her 20s, early 20s, I think. and her experiences with that, of dealing with her identity in America, and it gets a lot into issues of Blackness in America and immigrant status and the way identity is formed. It also follows her college boyfriend who always wanted to go to America but instead ends up in the UK and deals with having an illegal immigrant status there and then returning to Nigeria and making money but in ways that are shady. Anyway, it's really interesting. I thought this was a very strong, very well-written book, very powerful, very thought-provoking. It's something that I continue to think about, like I said, and bring up in things. I didn't like the ending. It bothered me. It falls into one of the tropes that I really hate most of the time, and this case was no exception. However, I do very much recommend it. I think it is worth picking up. My next 4-star read was Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian, and I did do a dedicated video review of this, which I will link up above if you want to go check it out. It is a debut YA fantasy novel about a princess who was orphaned and evil people took over her kingdom, and now she has to join the rebellion and take things back. It's very dark. It's really good. There's some interesting things going on in here, so check out my review of that. I did get to go to the launch party of this, which was awesome and really fun, and I got my book signed, which was lovely. So yeah, I do have footage of that, which I will be uploading. I just need to like get around to it and edit it and put it up, and I have so many videos right now I need to get up, but that will be coming if you want to check it out and hear Laura talk a little bit about the book. It was really cool. The next book that I read was also 4 stars and also one that I got to go to the launch party of, which was pretty cool. This was a fun read. It's called Royals by Rachel Hawkins, and the timing dovetails quite nicely with the upcoming royal wedding. This is about an American girl whose older sister gets engaged to a Scottish prince, and she is suddenly thrust into the life of royals. It's a light, quick read. It's very fun, very entertaining. I really enjoyed it, and I got this one signed as well. I do recommend it. If you're looking for just like a fun, entertaining light read, this is a good one. And the launch party was super fun and cute too. So I also have footage of that. That was last night as I'm filming this, and so eventually that will go up as well. The next 4-star read that I had was another arc from NetGalley. This is called Campaign Widows by Amy Agresti, and this is another one that I really liked, and I liked the way it was done. It was, I think, a really well-written book. I guess this is sort of like political chick lit, kind of. I really enjoyed it. It is about a group of people whose significant others are away on the campaign trail of a presidential election, either because they're candidates or they're journalists that are following the candidates or they're on part of the team supporting the candidates. And it's just really interesting. It's really well written. The characters are really strong. There's an older woman who's a big deal in society in Washington, D.C. There's this very interesting woman who's the wife of one of the candidates. There is a woman who is a mom of twin toddlers who kind of gave up a lot of her career and is dealing with what that means and trying to work on the side and struggling with things. There's a young woman who is a journalist who recently got engaged and is having some relationship issues. So anyway, there's a lot of really interesting sort of characters and things going on, and the book spans the election season and it ends after the new president is elected. And I thought it was really interesting. It does a lot of cool things, and it was a pretty quick read. It was fun. That does go on sale in May, I think May 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. Then I had 2 books that were 4.5 stars. These were ones that I really, really liked. There was like something that kept me from giving it 5 stars, but really, really great books. The first one was another arc. This was From Twinkle with Love by Sandia Menon. She's the author of When Dimple Met Rishi, which was all over BookTube last year. I read it last month and really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. This one I actually enjoyed even more. It's hilarious. I thought it was very funny. It's totally, like, I love what she's doing. She's basically bringing the romantic comedy to teen Indian American girls, which is fantastic. So this one is another high school rom-com. It's about a girl who wants to be a filmmaker. You know, drama, growth, romance, funny moments. I just really enjoyed it. It was a very entertaining light read. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I do recommend it. This one also comes out, I think, May 22nd. A lot of books coming out May 22nd. It seems to be like a big publishing day. And then the other book that I gave 4.5 stars was To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo, and Leanna over at Leanna's Library sent this to me, so thank you so much to Leanna. She read it and loved it and was like, you have to read it, so she sent it to me, which was super sweet. I really enjoyed this. This is loosely a Little Mermaid retelling, but much darker, about a girl who is a siren and a young man who is a siren hunter and a prince. And so the siren needs to take his heart for reasons, and the prince wants to kill all the sirens and end their war with each other. So that happens. It's really good. It's fun. It's also nice because it's a standalone, which you don't get a lot of YA fantasy standalones. This is one. I thought it was a really strong read. Why it was not 5 stars for me, I was annoyed at the prince for reasons, and yeah. If you want to know more about it, because it's slightly spoilery, read my Goodreads review. But in general, I thought it was really good. It was a very strong debut novel. I'm definitely interested in reading more from her. Lastly, time to get into my 5-star reads for the month, and there were 6 of them. And some of these were ones that were surprises. I didn't expect some of them to be 5-star reads, and they just kind of blew me out of the water. So the first book that I want to talk to you about is Select by Merritt Weisenberg. This is kind of a, I think, underappreciated YA book. I read it because I got approved for book 2 on NetGalley, and so I picked up book 1, and I ended up really loving it, way more than I was expecting to. Part of it is that I like this sort of trope of cult-like things, and it also involves people that have unusual abilities, so it kind of hits some notes for me. I just loved it. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun, quick read. If you want to know more of my thoughts, I do talk about it in my reading update video, which I have linked up above, so go check that out. I talk about that, and I also talk about my next 5-star read, which was Ship It by Britta London, and this was one that I did get as an ARC from NetGalley. It came out on May 1st, and guys, I loved it. There are people who have issues with it. I loved it. It made my little fangirl heart so happy. It's very diverse. It is very much about fangirls and conventions and ships, and I don't know. I really liked it. I don't want to talk too much about it on here because it's already going to be a really long video, but I do talk about it in depth also on that reading update video. So if you want to hear more of my thoughts and why I really think you should go check it out, go watch that video. I loved it. And it's out now, so. And also the cover's super cute. I'm so tempted to buy it. I don't know that I would read it again, but like the book looks so pretty, like the finished copies. Anyway, so there's that. The next one was one that I got from the library, and because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. Based on reviews I had heard, I was like, okay, I'm either going to love this or hate it, and I loved it. It was Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire, so now I want to own it, because it's amazing. And if you saw my TBR or my book outlet haul, you may have seen that I bought book 2, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and that is on my TBR for this month. Guys, this book is amazing. I understand why it would not be for everyone, but I was a huge fan. It is basically set in this world where there are kids who went to other worlds through portals, sort of like in Narnia. And when they come back, they have trouble coping and adjusting to life in our world because it's so different. And there's this boarding school that is specifically for these kids that went to other worlds and came back and are having trouble coping. And it's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's about like celebrating being different and celebrating who you are, even if that's not what the world thinks that you should be. And it's got a murder mystery in it. And I just loved it. I think it also really resonated with me because I grew up reading and rereading the Narnia books. I loved them, and this actually answers this question that I always wondered, where I was always like, because to me it always seemed like the most horrible tragedy that once they got too old they couldn't go back to Narnia, and that just made me so sad. And then I thought, like, what do they do after? Like, do they have to just like forget about it to cope, or like what do they do? And so this book kind of answers some of those questions that I had growing up and the things that I always thought were really tragic, and does some really cool, interesting things. It's also super diverse. The main character in this book is asexual. which is interesting. It's not something I've really read before, and from what I've heard, it's done pretty well. So yeah, anyway, I recommend checking it out. Again, like, this is one that I understand why not everybody loves, but I really, really loved it and want it in my life now. Then I should update you because where is it? Like, I have 5 copies of this book because I have international versions. Of course, I don't have one in the room with me, but I started my reread of the Witchlands series by Susan Dennard this month, and I buddy read Truthwitch with a whole bunch of people, and I loved it. It was so good. It's even better on a reread. It's even better on a reread. It's so good because I think the thing is, the first time there's so much world building that happens, which there needs to be, and the first time around it's good and I enjoyed it and it's interesting, but I think now, having read the books and then going back, it's so cool because I pick up on all of these nuances and these little things that she does that are just like awesome. At some point, probably once I do my whole reread, I'll do a video talking about the reread and talking more in depth about all of the books, but I've just been loving it. This is one that is absolutely worth rereading once you've read the series and you're like, oh, I see what she's doing here, or you notice like little things that didn't make sense to you the first time. Anyway, it's just been fun. I've been loving it. This was still a 5-star read for me. Big fan. Then I finally got around to a book that the author, I won a signed ARC copy of this in a giveaway a few months ago, and finally got around to it, and I'm kicking myself that it took me so long because, you guys, this book is so freaking fantastic. It's Rain the Earth by A.C. Gowan. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her name, but you guys, this book, so good. It's the beginning of a new series. It's supposedly YA. I question that a bit. It is dark and rather mature in various ways, like the topics it tackles. It's like a new adult's mature YA. Definitely wouldn't give this to a young teen. Not so much just because there's like explicit sexual content so much. There's not that much of that, but there's a lot of other kind of heavy stuff in it, which I will get into. Actually, I think I'm going to do a dedicated video talking about this book because I think it's amazing. It does have a lot of trigger warnings in it, but I think it's powerful. I think it's so well written. I loved it so much, and I'm glad I finally read it. I do recommend picking it up. So yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and do a dedicated review video talking about this book because I think it deserves it, and it is not talked about enough. It's really good, and I'm looking forward to continuing with the series. And then last but not least is a book that is definitely gonna end up being one of my favorites of the year. Like, I can see it being in my top 5, likely. It's also a debut fantasy novel, also billed as YA. This one I very much question for similar reasons, but also because there is explicit sexual content and other things, but God, it's so good. This is Furyborn by Claire Legrand, and this is coming out from a smaller publisher. I got an ARC copy through NetGalley that I read and reviewed. It was 5 stars. It was freaking amazing. I'm going to the launch party and buying the book, and I'm dying to have a hard copy, like a finished copy in my hands. It's one that I think I will certainly reread and tell everybody they need to read. I did do a full review video of this, which, as I'm filming this, is not up, but by the time this goes up, it will be up, so I will link it up above. Go watch it. It's so good. It's dark. It's feminist. It's diverse. It's so well written. I am obsessed. It's really good, and I am looking forward to the launch party and meeting the author, so I will take you along with me when I go to that. I think it comes out mid-May? Late May? I think the launch party's on the 20th and the release date is the 22nd, so I will be definitely going to that. So there you have it. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of April. It was a lot of books, but they were really good. And yeah, some really good stuff, some stuff I really didn't like. Talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts if you guys have read any of these, if you plan to read some of them, if I didn't like a book that you really loved. It's always fun chatting with you guys. I know people have different feelings about it, but that's where I came down on these. So yeah, if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.